Our gospel lesson comes from Matthew 14:22 through 33. I'll be reading from the Message. As soon as the meal was finished, he insisted that the disciples get in the boat and go on ahead to the other side while he dismissed the people. With the crowd dispersed, he climbed the mountain so he could be by himself and pray. He stayed there alone late into the night. Meanwhile, the boat was far out to sea when the wind came up against them and they were battered by the waves. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them, walking on the water. They were scared to death. "A ghost," they said, crying in terror. But Jesus was quick to comfort them. "Courage, it's me. Don't be afraid." Peter, suddenly bold, said, "Master, if it's really you, call me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come ahead." Jumping out of the boat, Peter walked on the water to Jesus. But when he looked down at the waves churning beneath his feet, he lost his nerve and started to sink. He cried, "Master, save me." Jesus didn't hesitate. He reached down and grabbed his hand, and he said, "Faint heart, what got into you?" The two of them climbed into the boat, and the wind died down. The disciples in the boat, having watched the whole thing, worshiped Jesus, saying, "This is it. You are God's Son, for sure." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. As a child, my dad taught me how to ride a bike. I think I kept those training wheels on for just probably they were embarrassed. And so they said, "No, you're going to learn how to ride a bike." So we went out that first day with no training wheels on, my dad by my side, holding onto the seat of the bike, and he ran beside me. And I rode by myself, but with my dad by my side. The second day, we get out there, and it's going to be the same thing. I just assume he is going to be with me. He holds on to the bike, and we start running, and I'm pedaling, and I'm going, and the wind is blowing, and then I turn to look to smile at him, and guess who's missing? And guess who fell? Yes. That first day, the training wheels came off, and I said, "Don't let go, Daddy." And he said, "I won't, Sherry." The second day, I didn't say, "Don't let go, Daddy." I just naturally assumed he would be there by my side. But the minute I turned to look, and I took my eyes off the front, and I looked behind me, I fell. My security guard, my holder-upper of the bicycle, was not there. Another word for security might be certainty. And we long for certainty, don't we? What's next? What's coming next? Who can I depend on? What's the market going to be like? Are there going to be mesh bags so that I waited for the last minute and I can pick one up for my child? You'll notice in this passage, though, Jesus is not asking the disciples to get in the boat and go across the sea. He is telling them, and they are to go alone to unfamiliar, uncertain territory. And where will Jesus be? Well, he's going to be on dry land praying. You'll remember from last week, though, Jesus learned about the death of John the Baptist. And so he went alone to pray. But the crowds found him, and they didn't give him time. And it was getting late, remember? And so Jesus tells the disciples, again, notice discipleship. Jesus is telling them, "You feed the 5,000. Following Christ means to follow Jesus' command. And here, he commands the disciples to get in the boat and go across the sea. I have a friend who owns one of those lap pools, the endless pools where you can just swim and swim. Now, is it just me, or am I the only one that when I swim, I want to get to the other side? I want to swim and touch the edge of the pool. Because I just feel like swimming and not getting anywhere. Well, I might as well be a rat in a ring, a wheel going round and round. And I'm thinking this is what happened to the disciples. They're paddling along, and they're not getting anywhere. And we don't know if they don't know they're not getting anywhere. Because remember, it's late, it's dark, they can't see. We don't know whether there's the moon and they can see the edge coming up. There's dry land, and they're just like, we're almost there. Or if it's so dark and they don't know, am I in the middle of the sea? Am I beyond this? They don't know. They have no idea. But they stepped out in faith because Jesus said, go, and they went. And then what happens? They see something walking towards them. Now they are exhausted, they are tired, and they're probably wet beyond all means. And they think, a ghost. And Jesus says, take courage. It is I. Now, one thing that we don't know reading it in English is if you read it in Greek, it translates, it is I. If you translate that into Hebrew, I've read, don't correct me. If you translate it into Hebrew, it's Yahweh. I am. It is I. I am. Our passage is found in 3 of the 4 Gospels, Mark, Matthew, and John. In Mark, if you read that passage, Jesus is walking on the water towards them, but not only that, he's going to bypass him. He's on his way to the other side of the sea. He's just going to leave them out in the middle of the sea until they call for him. Isn't that interesting? In Matthew's version, Jesus stops. Jesus has compassion on them, exactly like he had compassion on feeding the 5,000. But nope, not in Mark's side. I think that's kind of Jesus's competitive side. I'm going to beat you. But Matthew continues to show us a God who is there for us, who reaches out God's hand. Don't let go, Daddy. I won't, my precious child. Our God who created a world out of chaos. Our God who loves us unconditionally, no matter what. Our God who is there for us during the calm and the storm says, take courage. It is I am. I am with you now and forever.